Hi, I'm Mariette Martineau, Religious Education Coordinator, Family Life and Equity Lead for Kenora Catholic. In this short video workshop, as sponsored by Novalis in partnership with the When Faith Meets Pedagogy conference that's moved online, I offer you a simple introduction or foundations that, as I perceive them, to what's most important for faith formation in the early years. These are the foundations on which I rooted my book, Sowing Seeds, Inquiry, Faith, and Early Learners. A treasured part of my work as a long-term religious educator is the time I have spent with kindergarten-age learners. I love their natural curiosity, honesty, and their quick engagement with good stories and wonderings. As a religious education consultant, every fall for many years, I have been asked for a resource to teach religion at the kindergarten level, and one that does so with an increased stance. Educators ask for one that has some structure, yet one that truly respects how kindergartners learn and how they teach us and each other. Early year students are a special gift to the Church and our Catholic schools. How we perceive them and their giftedness will directly impact how we educate with them. I see early learners as budding theologians. If we take the simplistic definition of theology, it's faith-seeking understanding. And for me, I think that the questions and the ponderings and the easy connections that kindergartners make easily put them in the category of faith-seeking understanding. If our early learners have experienced healthy relationships that care for them, that nurture them, and in which they also have a role in taking care of others, they easily make the connection from that to God's love. As budding theologians, they are able to perceive the world through the lens of God's love. It is much easier for them at times to do that than it is for us older learners who have already boxed things in and have more resistance to seeing how the power of God is dynamic and alive in our world. Early years learners do have a little bit of a literal faith challenge in that sometimes it's hard for them with their level of conceptual thinking to go beyond what's real and possible. For example, sometimes they may struggle with some of the Bible stories because they can't figure out how it happened. Our job as religious educators is always to bring them to the reality that every story really is about God's love. And though we don't understand everything, and they're cool with that, really what we root ourselves in is God's love and the stories of God's love. I was working in a kindergarten room one fall, and we had just finished a conversation about Pope John Paul II, and it explored a comparison between Pope John Paul and our call to be shepherds too. A little while later, an educator noticed that Lucas was getting help from the students and adults in the room to write down everyone's name on a piece of paper. Someone asked him, "What are you doing that for, Lucas?" And he replied, "If I am going to take care of my sheep, I need to know their names." Lucas's story of taking care of the sheep illustrates for us how literal they may think, but how easily they apply it to how they're called to live. Budding theologians, faith-seeking understanding. In the province of Ontario, and no doubt in many other regions of Canada and across the world, a stance of inquiry is being rooted as a central practice in our kindergarten and early primary rooms. My understandings and experience of inquiry are integrated into how I choose to engage earlier students in exploring faith. The image here of walking forward together is an example of a kindergarten room that explored the need for shoes and how shoes are critical for anybody to have a healthy life. Inquiry and faith are perfect collaborators. When one considers, for example, the rite of Christian initiation, the first phase of that is often described as an inquiry phase, as those interested in becoming Catholic gather in a community with catechists and explore their questions of faith before committing to become a catechumen and celebrate the rites of initiation, for example, baptism, Eucharist, confirmation. At those inquiry gatherings, there is often a provocation that launches the conversations. Provocations during this inquiry phase may include prayer, a church artifact, such as a tour of the church, a scripture passage, or a phrase from the creed. The provocation provides a starting place for candidates to begin making their own connections and to bring their life experience and understanding to the learning. Kindergartners may have limited life experience, but imagine if we were able to create a space at that age where their thinking is valued and their wondering seen as important enough to explore together. What would it be like if even our youngest students were valued as theologians, if we celebrated that the wisdom and creativity of God resides within them? Sowing Seeds was written with that view in mind. It was written to support our youngest learners to develop core skills we all need to live a rich life of faith. A curious stance, a reflective stance, a stance that says our relationship with God is dynamic and deep and our learning about our faith is lifelong, and a stance that says community wisdom is needed to live faith best. In short, an inquiry stance. As I imagined a faith formation resource for kindergartners, I imagined the book with images first, and questions and other provocations second. Therefore, the first provocation provided in each topic is either one central image or a collection of images. I think the images are a great place to launch an inquiry and then make choices as to where you need to go next. I always begin the guiding questions in the resource with a simple, what do you see? What do you see in this picture? What do people seem to be doing? How do they seem to be feeling? Are they doing things together? Are they doing things alone? I invite them to ponder what they believe the artist wants us to see and understand in these pictures. And is this like anything that they know something about? Is this like their life at school or at home? Using images to encounter and deepen one's relationship with God is not a new practice in our church. The practice of Visio Divina has been around for a long time, and even just consider the icons that are a critical part of our Eastern brothers and sisters spirituality. Images are a way for us to deepen our relationship with God. I would encourage you to go beyond the child-friendly images provided in this book to other sacred religious art, as I think you will discover that children will engage in prayer and deeper reflection if invited to do so with the use of images. The challenge of writing a book about inquiry is that I don't know where your students are going to go, and I trust your expertise in facilitating the inquiry process to go where you know they need to go and where they know they need to go. I think the images are one great place to launch an inquiry and then make choices as to where you need to go next from there. Do you need to go to the scripture passage or the potential explorations listed for each topic? At other times, you may want to begin with the scripture passage and go to the images, or start with an exploration and connect back to either or both the images and the scripture passage. You're facilitating an inquiry process, and you know that your beginning, your middle, and your end will vary depending on where the students are at and what their passions and interests seem to be driving forward. One of my favorite collections of images in Sowing Seeds is under the topic of light. Light is so diverse and comes in so many forms. Its science alone is mind-boggling and contains so many directions that the students may want to explore further. Jesus said he is the light of the world and that we are light too. What are the properties of light that make it such a compelling Christian symbol? It's one that Jesus used repeatedly. Why? As adults, we tend to take so many amazing things for granted and often lose a sense of curiosity about the images that Jesus shared with us. For example, I am fascinated with fireflies, as I didn't grow up with them on the prairies. I'm intrigued by how they create light. I think about Jesus telling me to be light, and I think about the power of one little firefly to bring light to the world. How much more light am I called to bring? I also stand in awe of how detailed God's creativity is. We also know this to be true. As I've mentioned earlier, when we provide a safe place for students to make connections, everyday things are transformed into the godly realities that they are. Turning on a light switch, lighting a candle, using a flashlight, no longer just regular things, but holy realities. For the sake of simplicity, yet authenticity, I opted to align the learning in this resource to the 6 tasks of catechesis. At the time of my writing, the 1997 General Directory for Catechesis was available, as a newly revised directory was just released in June 2020. But trust me, the tasks for catechesis will be the same, as they echo the 4 pillars of the Catechism. You will note at the beginning of each topic that I name 1 or 2 of the tasks of catechesis that I feel the lesson will most address. The 6 tasks are promoting knowledge of the faith, liturgical education, moral formation, teaching to pray, education for community life, and missionary initiation. It will be easy enough for you to move from these broadly defined tasks, as I've connected them in this resource, to your own provincial or state curriculum. Challenged by COVID, we are unable to gather for When Faith Meets Pedagogy. The workshop topics developed here in this simple short video obviously need a lot more attention and detail. Perhaps at a later date we'll be able to explore that. But if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Here's my email. In these final minutes of the video, I offer you an introduction to the resource, Sowing Seeds. Welcome to Sowing Seeds, Inquiry, Faith, and Early Learners. Written by myself, Mariette Martineau, illustrated by Jim Burrows, and published by Novalis. I know that inquiry cannot be captured in a book or a box. I also believe provocations to launch authentic inquiry or that serve as catalysts for your own ideas can be. Inquiry is a natural fit for our young theologians as they explore faith. How often did Jesus himself prod his disciples to explore and be curious? How often did he ask them, "Who do you say I am?" Faith and inquiry are natural collaborators, leading to the deepening of faith and the understanding of faith practices. Sowing Seeds offers you introductory content that shares with you what is most important to remember about these learners and why inquiry and faith are natural partners. Sowing Seeds offers you 30 different provocation collections. Some are based on the flow of the school year, many are based on the flow of the church year, and some are based on scripture stories that young students easily engage with. Sowing Seeds is coil bound, which means it's really easy for the teacher to open the page of images and show them to the students while they themselves have easy access to the teacher text that's facing them. Here's an example of an image page and the teacher page. Each provocation collection offers you images for students to view, name what they see, and to make meaning of. Each provocation collection offers you a scripture story that fits with the image or may be used as a provocation on its own, along with some guiding questions. For example, in the provocation collection for the fall, the passage from John 12:24 is used, in which Jesus says, "Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain." The collection includes explorations that may flow from the image or scripture or may launch another inquiry. For example, when one explores Jesus as shepherd, you may choose to do an in-depth study about what sheep are really like, or when exploring the Christian symbol of light, taking time to explore the properties of light. Lastly, each provocation collection includes a read-aloud possibility to explore the theological connections with the students further. Though written most centrally with the kindergarten learner in mind, we also believe that this resource will be helpful to older grades, as it helps teachers to see that religion is bigger than religion class through the provocations and images provided. Sowing Seeds was written to serve a need for kindergartners and their educator teams to explore and share faith together through an inquiry stance. We believe it will do that. We believe it will also help you to name and launch your own ideas to sow seeds of faith within your classroom community. Happy gardening. For more information about Sowing Seeds, or to purchase a copy, please visit the Novalis website. Simply Google Novalis and it will get you there, or use the address provided here. Thank you.